Diamond C Fundamental for Success number 3, call the meeting. Don't talk about people, aka gossip. Talk with people. If you have an issue with someone or something, confront the issue directly to resolve it. If this doesn't work, take it to your leader. Don't hold a grudge and let it linger. Remove the wedge. So Bettiina, thank you for joining me for a few minutes to share some of your perspective on this fundamental. I know as a person that's really invested your career in the growth and success, supporting the growth and success of other people, this has to be one that is important to you. So I'm really curious to hear some of your perspective on it. So with that, why do you believe that this fundamental of calling the meeting and confronting issues is critical to a person's growth and success at Diamond C or in any other job?
Sure. I think one of the really important things, this is one of the hardest ones. And even the people we perceive as it being easy, it's a choice, right?
Absolutely.
So you think about HR and how it's assumed that it's so easy for HR to do it. We go through the same thing that every other human does. But it's so important to do it. It's important to our own personal growth because it creates self-awareness.
Absolutely.
And it's a vulnerability that we put out there. And as leaders, we need to choose to be vulnerable first. And so when doing that, calling that meeting, we remove roadblocks, right? As humans, we make up stories in our mind, and until we call that meeting, you'd be amazed at what comes out of it. Many times we clear the air, and the person had no idea what was going on, and they now get to grow, and from that opportunity of you being vulnerable. And other times, it wasn't at all what happened, and now I get to grow because I learned something that I perceived and made a story up. So that is all opening up the doors and removing the roadblocks. And also the fear of having that, because so many times what we learn from that is, hey, it's not so bad to have this conversation.
Absolutely. So clears roadblocks, clears the way for progress. I think we see this sometimes hang up with calling the meeting or confronting issues in all different parts of our lives, right? Not just in a work context or an HR context or but in assembly lines, in production departments, in engineering departments, in every department, in between departments, and at home with our spouses, with our children. All these, we all have these different things and situations throughout life where we need to call the meeting, right? So what would you say is the cost of not calling the meeting?
Yeah, a couple of things. When you consider culture, now I'm coming into a workplace if it's my conflict or my issue with somebody, and this isn't leaving my mind. So every time I run across them, every time I'm in a meeting with them, or whether I see them or not, I'm thinking about this issue I haven't resolved.
Right.
So it certainly removes the productivity for me, but I'm also coming in and now feeling uncomfortable potentially in my own work environment. I think the other important thing about that, as much as I may be uncomfortable, that is showing up for other team members. Whether we're talking about it or not, they see that interaction. So we need to, all of us want a sense of belonging, and we need to be able to speak up and be able to talk to each other. So I now come to work, one, I can actually focus on the work I need to do, feel comfortable and feel like I have a place here, but also provide that to the team members and other people surrounding that.
Gotcha. So the cost of not calling the meeting then you're saying is distraction, almost preoccupation can be preoccupied with these issues, or the wedge between you and another person or whatever really affects your work detrimentally, your emotional health, your
overall well-being.
Exactly, overall well-being. I love what you said though, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. Yes. There's collateral damage to harboring that stuff. So we've talked about why it's important, why it's critical, this growth, this fundamental, and the cost of not doing it. But obviously, we've already mentioned a bit, confronting an issue, calling the meeting can be a pretty uncomfortable, intimidating thing to do that many people just really wrestle with this idea of, confronting the issue head on with perhaps sometimes another person that, offended them or whatever the issue may be. Confronting touchy subjects. So what would you say are the keys to success in actually practicing this fundamental and actually doing just that and calling the meeting? How should a person go about calling the meeting?
Yeah, I think it's really important not just to, walk next to the person and say, hey, I've got an issue with you and address it right then and there. You need time to think about it. The other person needs to know what they're walking into. So taking that time to schedule a meeting specifically to address this issue and be willing to take that time, because not only do you need to be honest and transparent and be able to address it, you need to be willing to have your story changed. Mm-hmm. So when the person comes in, you need to give space for them to hear what you have to say, but also for them to be able to share, yes, that is true, or no, that isn't, right. And be willing to change your mind. Mm-hmm. I think you also have to think through being calm. This isn't, you don't do it with anger. You don't do it with emotion. You address the facts. You don't address and accuse the person.
Right.
You talk about what your observations are and the impact to the business or people around you or yourself. And you watch your body language and your tone. Mm-hmm. And then you make sure when you walk away, what are you agreeing to, right? Mm-hmm. What are the behavior changes? What are the issues? And you walk out of there agreeing with how to fix that. You accept apologies and you also offer apologies. I think that's really important.
I love that. Everything you just said, there's so much value in the things you just said. I think we're going to have to turn that into like a little Cliff Notes guide to calling the meeting, the steps that you just explained, because that's all so critical to coming to the table as teammates or family members or whatever it is, friends, coming to the table and successfully working through some kind of conflict resolution. It's valuable, so valuable to ensuring that the people involved can get on with life, right?
Yes.
And don't have that potential risk of collateral damage or emotional, mental damage or lost opportunity as much as anything.
Agree.
For sure. So I know that, in our journey at Dom & C and, through growing the organization here over the years, this fundamental has been absolutely critical, because with growth comes constant change. With change comes some friction along the way here and there. And so we've had to have a lot of call the meeting discussions along the way that so often have been just extremely productive and healthy and trust builders, really. Calling the meeting can actually go from being this intimidating, scary thing to actually being a really good catalyst for trust when
Absolutely.
We realize that, hey, we can come to the table on potentially touchy subjects and step through that and have productive conversations that make us better and stronger. Usually the folks walk away from those conversations, whoever's involved, whether it's two people in a production department or it's an executive meeting or whatever, usually the people involved walk away with stronger relationships, stronger trust, stronger team, unified more than they would have been without the issue at hand,
That's true. At the end of the day, Jeffrey, we all want to belong, right? And the stories we make up when these issues happen mean that we're feeling left out quite often, or the conflict's part of it. But again, there are stories that we make up about it in our minds, because that's just what we do as humans. So we don't want that to kind of go into our culture even further. The trust is what's critical. And when you can come into a workplace because everybody's agreed to call the meeting, and the more immediate you do that, the better, because now I can recall my own behavior.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
But when we do that, then I can come to work every day knowing it's a great place to be, a great culture to be in. All team members are looking out for each other and have each other's back. And the purpose of calling in the meeting is because we're doing it together and we have each other's back for no other reason.
Absolutely. It's a unified vision, unified agenda, unified purpose in fueling the growth and success of the team members, customers, community. And again, same context, same principles apply in the context of home, friends, life outside of work too. So thank you so much for the wisdom that you've shared. We've got to produce the Cliff Notes version of it for sure. For anyone out there, if you've got a wedge between you and a teammate, you and a family member, or an issue, doesn't have to be a person issue, a process issue, an issue that's bugging you, that's holding you up, that's distracting you, that's on your mind that you can't get past, call the meeting. Figure out who you need to call the meeting with and call the meeting. Take Bettina's advice on how to go about doing that, and call the meeting so that you and your teammates can move on in a productive way for the growth and success of yourself and your team and all the people around you.